Oh, you were right over that one. Welcome. So there are a number of verses, even though it was a short Haftarah, there were several verses that stuck out to me. One was verse 47, where it said that Solomon left all the vessels unweighed because of their very great quantity. The weight of the bronze was not reckoned. That's interesting. It assumes that every other product was weighed very carefully. Otherwise, if none of them were weighed, why specifically say the bronze was not weighed? So if they tell us that the bronze was not weighed, it means the others were. That's really interesting. So I looked and found that Targum Yonatan, which is a very early translation into Aramaic, it did not reach the kind of official status that the Targum Onkelos in Babylonia raised, but in many Mikra Okadolot, in many versions where you have all the commentators like Rashi and even Ezra, they will tell you the Targum Yonatan translation, so you can find it very easily. And it tells us there, for some reason on this verse, that Solomon commissioned the creation of more temple implements than he would actually need, and put the remainder away for future use. What do we learn from that? What do you learn from that? Esther.
One is, it's also very interesting that you left the bronze unweighed, because all the way through the Mishkan, they're like, and then this person donated a bowl that was worth this much shekel.
Mm-hmm.
But Solomon says, nope, not that much. And second, because bronze had a practical use that was not for temples in the ancient. Bronze has a practical use of being weapons, but Solomon was like, no, I'm going to take the stuff that is normally weapons and shields, a temple out of it.
Wow, yeah, fabulous comments. Yes,
That's two.
Oh, that's two, I'm sorry.
I have one more.
Please.
And the third one is, I am thinking now of, I forget his name. In London in the 1880s, they had what was called the Great Stake. And the Parliament commissioned this guy to lay out the entire sewer system. But when he laid it out, he said, I am not going to lay out a sewer system for the people who are in London now. I am going to lay out a sewer system that is for 100 times the number of people. And as a result, London has not had to build another sewer system.
Wow, so that's amazing. So like Solomon, perhaps he had some foresight that we can't just build for today. We also have to realize that down the road, we may have future needs.
Solomon was building for the fact that although Israel was a fairly small country at the time, the population was inevitably going to increase. The sacrifices therefore required was inevitably going to increase. Now, as long as you've got the good artisan here now, make all the things for later.
Beautiful. I love that whole, everything you said was so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Josh.
My interpretation is a little more prosaic. I think it was more Pekuah Nefesh. He didn't want to give his treasurer a heart attack.
Yes, always thinking of the other person, that's Solomon, and helping them not have to carry it and weigh it carefully and put it to where it's supposed to go and weigh an awful lot. Thank you. Anybody else have a comment about what we can learn from King Solomon from the verse itself or from the translation, which added a little piece of midrash into the translation that King Solomon actually asked for more materials of this than he needed? Any other comments? Yeah, Maya.
This seems to echo the Torah portion from a few weeks ago. And I'm just remembering in that portion, they asked everyone to give. And people gave so much that they eventually said, you got to stop, we have too much. And it seems to me that by getting all of these materials, even more than you need necessarily, everybody who is able to give, who wants to give, can feel that they were a part of this. And in the Torah, they ended up saying, we have too much. Here they seem to say, in the Haftarah, they have more than enough. And I think that way everybody can feel more involved.
Beautiful. And of course, one of the differences is that in the, whoever was carrying the Mishkan, if they put everything there would be too much to carry for those 8, 10, 12 people, whoever's carrying around the Mishkan, right? So, but once you have a stationary place, you can probably have more storage there to handle more than you need, right? So that's, but great comment about the inclusivity of having more because it meant more people could give. Phil?
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to piggyback on. Again.
We're not inside the kitchen, so you can piggyback out here inside the kitchen, no pig.
Anyway, by having more than one self needs, then you're able to give to others who are have lesser.
Beautiful. If you have more than you need, you can give to others. So that's a beautiful comment as well. I think it also helps feel relaxed. If you always don't have enough, you always have a lot of worries about how are we going to make it. If you have more than you need, then you can actually worry about more important matters like spirituality than how are we going to pay for the lights, right? So thank you for those comments. Just want to think about, we've just been emerging from Omicron variant. We're still sort of have a pandemic. We still have a virus around. We have to still be cautious, but it feels like that now that rates of vaccinations are up and rates of boosters, and we hope that will continue. And everybody should get vaccinated and boosted if you have not already, if you are watching at home. But what are we doing to prepare for the future? Anybody want to share something that they've been doing to prepare for the future, or something that the synagogue's been doing to prepare for our future in the meantime? Yes, Phil.
Well, as soon as I saw this, I thought about after my brother died, everybody was in uproar, did not know what to do as far as funeral plans and this and that. Finally, I was able to convince my daughter we need to go down and make final arrangements. So there is no burden on my family. Everything is all taken care of. All they have to do is, they said down outside, I just give us a call, we'll pick her up. So basically, to less burden my family when I'm gone. Take care of them now so they don't have to have worry later.
Beautiful. So thank you so much. I think just on a recent scholar stream, I think Rabbi Dorff, it might have been, who talked about preparing for our eventual leaving this realm and joining the other realm, and how important it is to do that. The conservative movement actually has materials to help us do that, directives and other kinds of things to help us with halakhically and spiritually for that. And as you pointed out, it is actually a big relief to family members because they now know your wishes. So they'll know exactly what kind of funeral you want. They might know what you want to do with certain objects. You want to give certain things as gifts to people, certain things you might want donated or whatever. They will not have to guess what you want if you make your wishes clear to them. I know my parents did it. They would update it every 5-10 years, and they would sit down with my siblings and me to talk about their wishes and what they wanted to have happen. And they also did sort of their own ethical will by telling us about their thoughts about life and Judaism and things like that. So I was always very grateful. So thank you for that. Anybody else have a comment on preparing for the future, for yourself or for our synagogue? Anything we have done or might yet do?
It's so great to be back. We don't know if this will happen again. It could be COVID. It could be totally different. Now that we've had this experience with COVID, if we ever have to lock down again as a synagogue, we don't have to worry about things like protocols or developing slides for a Zoom service. We can snap back in and out with ease. And although we always want to be here, it won't be a panic anymore if we have to take a break.
Beautiful. Yeah. So now that we've done this, it becomes easier should we need to do it another time. In fact, we actually had come back last summer in July, but because of the Omicron variant, we went back into Zoom. and it was easier to do it. Of course, we missed each other, and now that we're back, we know that if we had to do it again, we could. Thank you. I know that one of the things we've also done in the meantime is we used part of our time we got a grant from the Pacific Southwest region of United Synagogue and redid our website. That it also helped that we got some help from our members. Some of you here today, whether you're here on YouTube or here live, may have been among those contributors. We're very, very grateful. And everybody just loves the new website. It's a much more user-friendly and easier tool. We have been building out how we can have better programming. So we've used this time for classes, for special events, for lectures, etc. And we're hoping that at least of our new series, that is also partly because of the Pacific Southwest Region's grant and partly because of a gift by the Joseph Reardon Funeral Home, that our last of the 4 events will be live back in our building in May. We'll hopefully confirm that in this next week and share that with you. But we're very, very excited for the kind of things that we're able to thoughtfully prepare for, even in the midst of bad times. I want to spend a few moments on the whole Haftorah as a whole. It contained a summary of the items created by HaYam for the temple. HaYam was from Tyre. He was a foreign artist commissioned by King Solomon to build the temple. He doesn't get the credit, but he did do the building. Hiring foreign artists for large projects was common practice in the ancient Near East. In fact, a number of the items we read today, according to Rashi, were actually musical instruments. They did use musical instruments in the temple, and they did have choirs in the temple. So music is actually not forbidden on Shabbat. The reason why there became a later law was actually just because they thought you might be tempted to fix an instrument that broke. So if you're a string artist, you know that if a bridge falls when you're playing violin or cello, you got to fix it immediately because the whole thing will crack and it'll be worthless. Today, many conservative synagogues do use piano because nobody fixes a piano on their own. You call a tuner if it goes out of tune, and they come, not Shabbat. In any event, looking here at this picture of HaYam as a whole, we want to know, does getting the best artist enhance the temple in creating a best prayer environment, or does it detract because we got a foreign person who is not Jewish, HaYam, for creating the cultural space of the temple?
Chumash, at least, says that HaYam is the son of a Tyrian father and a Danite mother, which makes him a Jew.
Yeah, that's in the Midrash section. That's actually not who he was, but the Midrash didn't like the idea of somebody who was not Jewish, so they tried to make him Jewish.
As far as a non-Jew making the space, it was, I think for that sort of thing, at the time in the context, getting the best person for the job made sense, right? Jews were pure in Israel. There weren't really any questions at the time of, are these foreigners going to, their culture going to get greater, Edomite or what have you culture, whereas here today there is questions like, is them going to get surrounding Christian culture? Have you? That wasn't an issue. So I think that in questions over whether getting a foreign artisan who's just the best artisan to do something less of an issue because of the.
Yeah, interesting, yes. And smartly, Tyre was not really like a border country. It was very, very far north. So it wasn't like they went to the neighbor next door, where there might have been more of that, to address your concern of the cultural influence so much. No, people didn't live in Tyre, but people might have known the neighboring Midian, for example. Esther?
Much stuff that guys used to make. I sincerely doubt he was personally making all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it might have been just like you hire a famous architect to design your building, but all of the labor is local.
Mm-hmm.
And then a good designer to do design work, and the people who actually did it were Jewish. Local.
So that's an interesting point, that the workers were Jewish workers, they would have had more at stake in making sure the building was done lovingly and well, right? If you get somebody who doesn't care because they're never gonna go to whatever, maybe they don't care about making sure all the wiring or all the parts are 100%. But if somebody's gonna be using it, and that's where they're gonna be davening and bringing sacrifices and things that will matter to them, they will want to make sure that it's really not only right, but done in the best, most elevated way possible. So that's an interesting point. Mayan?
You gotta remember what the purpose of this project is. It's like a temple that is inspiring, creates awe. You want to get everyone to flock to this place. And in order to do that, you want to get, their idea was to get the best person for the job, a big name that everyone will get behind, no matter where they come from. If this is a great talent, they want to look far and wide in their talent search. But at the same time, I think they should have had more faith. Somebody local who was Jewish could have done just as good of a job. Perhaps they were undiscovered talent. This happens in Hollywood all the time. You want somebody from a certain group to do something, but you don't know who they are because they haven't made a name for themselves. If you look hard enough, these people are out there.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So we know actually that there was a time where Jews actually did use even foreign designers. So in Philadelphia, there's a very big synagogue that was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. You can find many examples like that where the actual architect, not just the builders, which in our day, a lot of times the people who actually do the building, unlike in biblical times, are probably not Jewish. Probably most of the laborers for most of the synagogues in the United States were not Jewish laborers, is my guess, the vast majority. And sometimes, though, even the designers were not Bitzalel, but really but Hira, which is just very interesting. But now it's gone reverse, because now the concern that you have and the concern you have, Esther, I noticed at Beth Am, for example, they only wanted to use Jewish architects to design. Somebody who was intimately knew what Jewish davening, what Jewish prayer, what Jewish spirituality was in the designing. So when they totally refurbished, and they spent a great deal of money to do that at Beth Am, our sister congregation, they really wanted to make sure that the architecture was done by somebody who had that kind of feeling of what spirituality was. Interesting piece. We are going to move along. You can think for yourself why this list of detailing that we've really had quite a few chapters about, because they told us what to build very, very precisely, and then they told us in over many chapters what the Israelites did. So all of this detailing and this inventory must be important. Obviously, taking inventory is important if you're a store owner or a shopkeeper. You need to know what you have and what you're doing. But we don't have time to discuss that today. We're going to let you think about it. I did find that there's a very interesting thing about Clay Kodesh. And Danny Siegel, one of the great modern sort of commentators via poetry, really writes poems, he talks about how we people can be Clay Kodesh. That Clay Kodesh is something that actually serves a holy purpose. Often, sometimes even a purpose not for which it's designed, maybe, or that it always does, but at least sometimes can do. And that we people sometimes can be Clay Kodesh. Maybe in our everyday lives, we aren't doing holy things every minute of every day. Nobody can live on that level of holiness. Very often we have to pay bills, and we have to make our bed, and we have to take a shower and do things that are maybe not always holy things all the time that we do them. However, he points out that we can be Clay Kodesh. We can volunteer to deliver Mishloach Manot food to congregants that won't be able to be here on Purim to pick them up. we can go volunteer in some ways to help the unfortunate. And every time we do that kind of a mitzvah, we are actually being a Klei Kodesh. I'm wondering, is there something that you can share that you've done during this pandemic the last 2 years that you felt added an element of holiness to your life? Any way that you've been a Klei Kodesh? Yes. Alma.
Food and care, taking them to doctors.
Beautiful. Thank you. That's what a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yesterday, a friend of mine came home. All sorts of food for him. It was like
Klei Kodesh? Klei Kodesh.
many items of food. I do it because I become older.
Mm.
So she would be
Yes,
in your
Klei
mind,
Kodesh.
something like that.
Yes, beautiful. What a great thing. You know, and you usually most people feel good when they help somebody else. So it's beautiful to hear that congregants.
Gratifying.
What?
It's gratifying.
It's gratifying, right? Yes, thank you. And it's gratifying to hear that there are congregants who are checking in on other congregants, that are helping other congregants, that people can drive somebody to a doctor's appointment. Sometimes that's something that we don't want to be alone at. It's hard to do as we get older. And it's sometimes we don't hear as well, or we don't take in as well what people are saying. So it's just really gratifying to hear that, and that somebody is passing on that mitzvah and paying it forward. Hopefully, midah keneged midah, that in our tradition we say that one good deed usually generates another. And I think that that's often true. Finally, just wanted to point out that this whole inventory that we read in the morning in Pikudei, and that we read today, and talked about conclusion, the conclusion of the creation process, and it has the same language, the conclusion of the setting up of the Mishkan, the conclusion of the temple, is really, really interesting to think about taking a Dayenu moment to take stock, to take inventory. And it's good to take spiritual inventory and emotional inventory. We've been through a lot. We've been through a lot. And we shouldn't pretend like nothing has happened. But we should also, as we take stock, realize how resilient we have been, realize how good we've been, realize what strength of character and strength of person we have within us. And I want us to think about, as we move forward beyond the Shabbat and move into the realm of Vayikra and the realm of moving forward, I want us to think about your own personal inventory. What are your strengths? How is your character growth? What have you learned that's new in the past couple of years? Whether they are facts or talents, things in the computer realm, whatever it is, we want us to be thoughtful of taking stock of all that we are, so that as we take this Dayenu moment to take stock at the end of Shemot, we can actually think about what we bring with us to tomorrow. Josh?
I just want to say, Rabbi, that something that I think people should keep in mind is that growth doesn't always mean getting bigger. Especially in a time like this, when we're all under so much pressure, staying the same size requires a lot of work,
For sure.
right?
Absolutely.
Pull under pressure does not get larger, but it does become a diamond. And I think that people shouldn't worry and measure against other people. They should measure, did they survive?
Beautiful.
That's worth a lot.
Right? Just as the bronze was not weighed, we don't need to weigh ourselves against what other people are doing. Everybody's on a different timetable. Everybody lives in a different space, etc. So I want to thank you for that and for adding to that message as we go by. Whatever somebody else is doing, we're not cleaning their side of the street. We're only taking care of our own. I passed out something for fun that you can do on Shabbat afternoon. mentally or after Shabbat with a pen. But I have some holy vessels that are in a synagogue today. Not everything that could be named, but a lot of them, you can try to unscramble them and help end synagogue confusion by playing this game. And then there is a matching of fruits and vegetables that were Klei Kodesh in the Tanakh. You won't be able to get the answers. I don't have them on the page, so you'll just have to figure them out. But for the matching, I did provide the verses. So if you want to look up in your Chumash at home or online with Sefaria, you can find the answers yourself. But I want to wish you all, as we take stock, a meaningful time and a beautiful continued journey.